Hey rail fans, welcome to another episode of Trains with Shane. If this is your first time joining us, welcome to the channel. If you've been here before, welcome back. So what have I got going on today? Well, I was talking with a friend today, and we were talking about N Scale, as we do, because he's exclusively an N Scale guy. And we were talking about Bachmann, and he is not a Bachmann fan at all. He has been in N Scale longer than I have been around, and he has lots of experience, but not with Bachmann specifically. He has always avoided them in favor of Atlas, Kato, you name it. He has always favored the more higher priced brands. And I was giving him some spotting tips on if he were going to buy a used Bachmann locomotive, and I figured, hey, this would probably make a fairly insightful video. So what I've come up with here is I've got a selection of Bachmann engines here, and we are going to go over some of the spotting features on different generations of Bachmann and what to look for and also what to avoid. Excuse me. So, in N scale, and as I am sure HO scale and probably O scale and garden scale and all that, the name on the box isn't always necessarily the name of the manufacturer. For instance, this little Atlas RS3 right here was actually manufactured by Kato. There are Atlas engines that have been manufactured by Mahano. There are ones that have been manufactured by Rocco in Austria. Until recently, Atlas has been an importer, and their stuff has been manufactured elsewhere, whether it be China, Japan, Austria, Yugoslavia, you name it. Bachmann is one of the few brands that has always manufactured, in air quotes, their own hardware, which is to say they set up the plants, they manufactured, they imported, they sold under their own label. All of these have been manufactured, of course, overseas in China and Hong Kong. Most of you may say, well, isn't Hong Kong in China? Well, yes and no. It's not as easy as that, and it's a pretty interesting story if you want to go check out the relationship of China and Hong Kong and Great Britain, for that matter. But that's beyond the scope of this video. Needless to say, in its broad strokes, all of Bachmann's N scale stuff has been manufactured in China. Maybe by various subcontractors, that I don't know. I haven't dove that deeply into it, and that's pretty exhaustive. If you want some good details about pretty much almost any N scale locomotive or probably piece of rolling stock that you can ever find, go over to spookshow.net and check that page out. That fellow has put together an absolute golden encyclopedia of knowledge on this kind of stuff. But we're just going to hit the high notes of Bachmann here and get into what to buy and what not to buy. You get these two guys off the top here. Going from oldest to newest, let's say, we have this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. And we'll start at the beginning. I don't have original boxes for all of these, only the ones you see here, unfortunately, because as you guys know, I pick up most of my stuff used on eBay. Some of these you have seen in videos already. This one and this one have been in Will It Run videos. This one was in my review video because I purchased it brand new, one of the few that I have. And these two are coming up. So, let's start at the beginning-ish. Spotting features of this box are pretty obvious. Hard plastic, black, yellow insert, hinged lid. I believe that these were also available in Japan under the Tomy name, although not manufactured in Japan. These particular units here are manufactured in Hong Kong. Take this U-boat out of here. Some of the spotting features, if you're buying one used, is it is stenciled in, or not stenciled, it's formed into the base here, Bachmann and Hong Kong. The GoPro might not be picking that up very well, so I will get a snapshot of that and roll it in. The easiest spotting feature, though, however, if you can get a bottom look at one of these, is that if you'll notice it's got metal truck gears here. Sometimes these will look aluminum or steelish like this. Sometimes they'll have more of a golden brass color to them. These have a reputation for being fairly noisy runners, but fairly reliable if you keep them clean. I have two of these, this U-boat right here, and an F unit in a Chessie livery, which is on my channel, on doing a little quick runaround video of it, just because I felt like getting it out. These, I think, are the first Bachmann locomotives that were available in N scale in the 1970s. Pretty good, honestly. Buying one used today may be hit or miss just because of the age and lack of care that might have been involved. You can take them apart, clean them up, and as long as the motor hasn't been burnt out and all of the original components are intact, you should be able to come up with a good runner. Now, that being said, the reassembly of this is complicated. And the reason I say that is to electrically isolate the positive and negative on this. There are little bitty thin pieces of plastic. I can't really equate that to anything because I don't have any of them. They're all inside this engine and others like it. You can't just blow it apart, clean it, and put it back together. You have to pay attention to what you're doing. In an upcoming video, you'll see that on this particular engine here. I regretted taking it apart because it was running okay, and I just thought I would sneak a little bit of lubrication in there, and yeah, it was a bad idea. But only for the extra effort it cost me and the 2 hours it took. So, like I said, this is the oldest, so whether you see it in box or out of box, you'll know how to spot it. Recommend picking one up if you can get it cheap, sure. There's no plastic gears to crack or anything like that. Like I said, it'll just be a tiny bit of a noisy runner compared to new stuff. Sometime in the 70s or early 80s, they switched manufacturers and designs. They went to the first split frame chassis, which is what we have here. Spotting features is it says Bachmann on one side, China on the other. I'll see if I can roll in a picture of that as well. And this one is easy enough to shuck out of its shell that I will actually do it. Camera here. And show you what the inner working's like. And as you can see, split all the way down. There are plastics here and in here that you can't see, but that electrically isolates one side from the other. And current is picked up through each side of the wheels here. A piece of copper transfers it straight up into the frame, and the frame puts it into the engine here. This is a little a skew wound. I think this is a 5-pole motor. It may be a 3. I don't remember. The important spotting feature here is these white truck gears here. And interestingly, this one has 2 different colors because I've mixed and matched parts to make this one run, which should be your first clue. This particular type of white plastic or nylon or whatever it is does not age very well. It has a tendency to shrink and crack. This is something that affects HO scale as well as N scale. It's harder to see sometimes in N scale, and as a matter of fact, you can't see it right now on either of these, but it'll crack from one end all the way to another. It'll be a complete longitudinal crack along the axis of the axle here. And that will make these things not run very well. They will tick real loud if they do work, and at worst it can actually jam up the gearing on the trucks. I've had trucks out of these locomotives and I'm turning the worm gear and it hits a hard spot and will not turn, because when these crack, the teeth spread out a little bit and they jam on the center gear here. So long story short, don't buy one of these if it's got the white plastic gears, because it's really a roll of the dice. I picked up 4 of these and was able to scrape together enough parts to have this one runner, and it doesn't even run that well on the track. So this was the second manufacturer technique. Again, split frame, white nylon gears, 8-wheel drive, traction tires on 2 of the wheels. Avoid them if you can. Third, we've got the Spectrum line, and to Bachmann's credit, they made an effort to make better trains with the Spectrum line. This one isn't a very fantastic example because it was well used and abused when I bought it. And spotting features of these, if you don't have a box, is on the bottom it'll say Spectrum by Bachmann and China right here. Disregard this too. This was something the previous owner put on. You'll note this has dual brass flywheels on it, which wasn't a brand new concept in N scale, but it was new for Bachmann at the time. 6-wheel drive, all the trucks, both trucks pick up power, all wheels drive. It is a split frame chassis. White nylon gears. Again, these are not cracked, thankfully, but with it being this particular type of a material, they might eventually. We'll go ahead and pull the shell off of this because the screws were missing from this one when I bought it. And you'll see this is also a split frame chassis. Somewhat similar to this one, but a newer evolution, which will actually lead into where we're going here. Dual flywheels, a 5-pole skew wound motor. A modern-ish design, and they're actually decent. If you buy a Spectrum locomotive, if it's not been heavily abused, chances are it'll be okay, or you can make it run. Of the 2 that I bought, both of these run. One of them doesn't run very well because the motor's out of whack, and I'm not going to be able to fix it, so I'll probably end up putting the best of the parts into one of these. But that's not the fault of Spectrum. They're actually decent locomotives. If you can find one of these on the cheap and it looks to be in good condition, I'd recommend picking one up. From Spectrum, we also have the non-Spectrum. I call this a second generation split frame, and you'll notice as opposed to this one, the F unit, the split is pretty much straight the entire length, and here it's got cutouts in it. This is an evolution of this design. This is much better. Easier, much easier to work on than the old Hong Kong units. This one consequently is easy to work on too, but these gears are junk. Some differences, you'll notice this has black plastic gears. You can get locomotives with this type of frame with the old white nylon gears in there. For the same reason, avoid those, because again, they're prone to cracking and shrinking with age and not working right. The black plastic gears, much better, and they've aged a lot better. So you can buy one of these a lot more confidently than you can buy one of these. Consequently, you may pay a tiny bit more money for one of these. They were available, I think, both with these knuckle couplers and with the earlier Rapido style couplers like you see here. Would I recommend buying one of these? Yes. As I said, it's easy to work on. The frame is in two pieces, two screws, it splits apart, and there's your stuff. Easy to troubleshoot if something's not working. You've got contacts made of copper, just like all of the other locomotives, that transfer the power up to the side of the frame, which is electrically isolated by little plastic spacers on either end. And it just works. Again, they work as long as you pick one up that's been cared for. Just like buying anything else used, you run the risk of someone selling you a piece of junk because they didn't take care of it, or they bought it from someone who didn't take care of it and they didn't know how to fix it, and so on and so on. This is a good runner. It's a tiny bit noisy, but not too bad. Fairly smooth for not having flywheels. It's a 5-pole skew-wound motor. Inexpensive. You'll notice they still have truck-mounted couplers, which is good for running on tight turns, such as the loop track on the disgusting workbench here. Would I recommend buying one of this particular vintage? Yes, I would. Just watch out because, like I said, this particular frame style is also available with the white nylon gears. Avoid the white nylon gears if you can. I'm not saying that they're all bad, I'm just saying that a lot of them are. And then if you are only interested in buying brand new, Bachmann still make N scale, believe it or not. This unit here is new. This line they started manufacturing in 2018, I believe, also in China, just like everything else. You've seen the box. Spotting features for the newer ones. I mean, you can just tell that they're newer. The handrails are thin, yet they're firm. Good paint detail, painted number board numbers. Body mounted couplers with enclosed pilots. They're not mounted on the trucks anymore. You'll notice a hole in the bottom for a speaker, because now these are available in DC, which is what this one is, DCC ready, and DCC equipped. And I believe DCC and sound equipped, hence the speaker grill here. These say Bachmann on the trucks and made in China, as to where it used to be on the fuel tank. This has a 5-pole motor in it. I do not recall off the top of my head if this has a flywheel or two. But it is a split frame, easy to take apart. I have not taken this one apart yet because I haven't had to. I've got about an hour's worth of runtime on it, and since it's new, it runs smooth and quiet and beautiful like you would expect a new locomotive to run. A lot of controversy about Bachmanns online. If you mention Bachmann on a Facebook group, you'll get people that either love them or hate them, or don't know enough to love them or hate them. I've been of the opinion that Bachmann maintains a very important segment of the industry. If you want to buy an inexpensive starter set for a friend or a child, if you walk into, say, a Hobby Lobby or a Hobby Town or something, your cheap starter set's going to be made by Bachmann. Is it worth what you pay? Absolutely. But bear in mind that you get what you pay for. It's not going to be professional grade, but also you're not going to pay $300 for a locomotive. They are very good for someone just getting into the hobby to figure out if they want to stay with the hobby. And if you're someone who has considered buying Bachmann and want to buy used, it's not as safe a bet as buying, say, a newish Atlas or a Kato unit, especially Kato, because Kato, being sold under its own name, is manufactured in Japan and is a good product. I put this video together to hopefully give you some tips about what to look for and what to avoid when buying a used Bachmann locomotive. If you buy brand new, obviously you don't have to worry as much because you're buying brand new. No one has owned it and ran it and possibly not taken care of it. Brand new, you can pick up a new Bachmann locomotive for probably a third the price of a Kato unit. The Katos are brilliant. They run fantastically, and they're beautiful pieces, but you pay for the quality, just like you do in all things. So, Bachmann, good value for the money, especially if buying new. If buying used, be careful. Watch this video a couple of times and remember what I've said about them. With them being at the entry-level price point, you'll have people that bought these things, ran them, didn't really know how to maintain them, tossed them in a drawer, let them sit for a decade, and then decided to sell them on eBay when they're going through their stuff before they move. So there's a lot of bad running or flat-out not running Bachmanns on the internet for sale. So if you stick with the newer stuff, as long as it's got black gears in it, you're not too bad off. The motors didn't change very much along the years, with the exception of the Spectrum, of course, and then the newer things. So you can probably find a replacement motor for next to nothing if you need one. And if you like to tinker, buy a couple that don't work and see if you can make them run. Stay away from the first generation because, like I said, those things are electrical nightmares. And really, honestly, stay away from the ones with the white nylon gears as well. Spectrum, you're a little bit safer on in that regard. So I think that's where we're going to wrap this up. I want to thank you guys for joining me. I hope you got a little bit of useful information out of this. If you have any questions about N Scale Bachmanns, leave them down in the comments. If I know the answer, I'll answer you. If I don't, maybe somebody else in the comment section will. Again, for good details and good in-depth descriptions on pretty much everything here, go over to spookshow.net. I'll leave a link to that in the description. It's best to look the locomotives up there by the model. For instance, this is a GP40. This is a GP40. This is an SD40-2. This, I think, is a U25B by GE. So if you know what type you're looking to get, you can browse it more quickly that way. Otherwise, it is also broken out by manufacturer and importer, which, like I said, Bachmann is one of the very few who did both and have always done both, at least in their N scale stuff that I have seen. So I'm going to call that here, guys. I want you to have a good evening. I want to thank you for joining me on another episode of Trains with Shane, and we will see you on the next one. Take care.